Good evening, everyone. Welcome to UpStart Live Women in Design. I'm Mansa. I'm your host for the evening. PayU, as you all know, is one of the leading payment service providers. We are across sectors like airlines, SMB, and of course, the startup community. UpStart Live is our way of giving back to the community where we bring in subject matter experts like our speaker here, Devika, who will be talking about women in design. Why women in design? Because given that March 8th is Women's Day, what we are trying to do at PayU is we have been celebrating women leaders, women entrepreneurs throughout the month with various activities, various conversations with women leaders, just to talk about different business aspects or just general stuff, right? So today we have with us Devika Garge. She is the senior UX manager at PayU India. Yes, my colleague. So she'll be sharing about women in design, about how design came about to be a profession for her, and a few other things. So Devika, without further delay, over to you. Thank you so much for this with us. Take it ahead. Thank you.
No, it's my absolute pleasure. I think I feel absolutely honored to be able to speak at this forum. And thank you, everyone who's joining in live, and also people who are watching this at a later stage as a recording. Thank you for taking out time. Um, cool, let's dive right into it. Mansa gave a very sweet and short introduction, but I would like to go a little further back in time to give you a sense of where it all started for me. I would like to share my screen. Just let me know if you hold on. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, Devika, it's up.
Okay, cool. Like I was saying, that I would like to go a little further back in time because yes, I am a user experience manager right now at PayU, but my journey with design started a long time ago, as long as when I was a kid. Right, I as a child I was very very creative, and I am fortunate to have parents who always encouraged that side of me and encouraged that creativity, whether it was coming up with out of the box ideas for if there is someone's birthday in the family. I was the one who would be thinking of what kind of gift they would like and actually make it for them and give it to them so that I have that connection with them, to going to all of these art and craft classes throughout school, right? Whether and it all started with drawing, painting, and then slowly I started exploring other mediums like watercolors, acrylics, and then more 3D mediums like clay, glass, textiles, etc., right? And at that point of time, one of my biggest pillars was my art and craft teacher, Mrs. Pranita. And even today I fondly remember her as Pranita teacher, right? And she was the one who really took me on this journey of letting me explore different mediums, and she was constantly introducing new things for me to do so that I could run wild with my imagination and make new things continuously, right? And that was really important for me as a child because I was also studious as a kid. I loved math and I loved science, but these art and craft classes were a way for me to detach from studies and also really immerse myself in all of these different mediums and creating different new innovative things. And looking back, I think that was a very pivotal part of my upbringing because it made sure that I don't lose touch with the creative side of my personality while also, being focused on academics. Then after my 10th grade is where I was at the crossroads of where I had to decide, like every one of us, right? We have to decide whether to go into science, commerce, arts, etc. And I think right about this time is when I was introduced to the idea of design. We had no, up until that point, I had no idea about design as a field that even existed. And that the we also got to know about National Institute of Design, NID, in Ahmedabad, which is one of the oldest and the most prestigious design colleges in all of Asia. And I just got very curious because I had not heard about this field at all before, and I wanted to know more about it because I knew that I wanted to do something in the creative space, and that seemed like a good fit. Then I spoke to someone who was then studying in NID as a student. My mom somehow found this connection, and we went to meet her. And she again was another woman in my life who was like plugged in at the right place at the right time, because one conversation with her and I was completely sold on this idea. She told me about how design education is approached in NID and how it is so different from your conventional schooling that we have experienced so far. In NID, there are no textbooks, but there is a whole library where you can choose your books to learn from. There is no syllabus, but there are design projects that you get to work on, and there are no exams, but there are juries at the end of every semester where basically you have to present your work at the end, your learnings, and then you're graded that way. And that sort of really fascinated me and made me even more curious to learn about design and get to that field. Then what happened is my mom actually took me to the design campus in NID Ahmedabad. She is herself is an IIM Ahmedabad graduate, so she was familiar with Ahmedabad. So she took me there, and that the moment I entered the campus, if for those of you who don't know, NID has one of the most beautiful campuses in the country. It is full of nature, greenery, and there is inspiration everywhere. So I went to the campus and I spoke to some faculty and teachers there at NID, and that really forged my vision of getting into this design school. When it came to actually going through the entrance exam process for NID, that itself was a very stringent process. There was a written test which basically had questions that ranged from drawing to problem solving to logic and general knowledge. And then there was the second round was a studio test where we were given a bunch of materials and we had to come up with an innovative product. And finally there was also face to face interview. So it was a very competitive exam because back then, out of thousands who applied to get into this college, only at my time it was only 80 people who were going to get admitted in that course, right? And back then there was only one campus for the undergraduate program in Ahmedabad. So it was a very challenging process. And right about that time was also when my 12th standard board exam results came out. And to my biggest surprise, I had actually topped the boards in Bombay. I was the topper in arts in Bombay. And coincidentally, that year, all the fields like the science, commerce, arts, all the toppers were girls. So it was a news that really blew my parents' minds also. And a lot of people were questioning my decision of going into design because they thought that I was suited in a field that was more academically um, suited for me. But I think I had I was fortunate again to have parents who stood by my side, and luckily, I also got through the entrance exam and the whole procedure. And I joined the National Institute of Design in 2009 as an undergraduate student, and that is where my formal design education really kicked off. Talking a little bit about the design education at NID and why it is so unconventional. One of the things that NID and everyone in NID stressed upon is interaction with different people, whether it is with your fellow classmates or seniors or teachers. There were no boundaries at all, so you were constantly learning from different sources. The campus itself was beautiful and it had so many things that inspired you on a daily basis. There were also things like you could get into cultural activities that interested you. I was a part of a theater group, I was part of the dance group, people were also into music and sports. So it was really an environment that encouraged you to explore your creativity, not just in the regular curriculum that you go through at NID, but also outside of it. And that really broadened our perspectives and horizons. And it sort of broke down our egos to really understand that your point of view is not the only point of view, right? When you interact with people who are coming from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, even they have different cultural backgrounds, and through interaction you get to know their points of views and their perspectives on things, right? And you become a more perceptive individual. Right. There is a common misconception that design is what how things look, right? But in NID, it was always one of the biggest learnings from NID is that what is design, right? Design is all about problem solving, and it is about how things work, how things look, and how things make you feel. It is not just one element of it. So that really set the stage for your everyone who came to study or had that shift in mindset about what design really means. Talking about the curriculum in NID, the first year was our foundation year where we were exposed to different courses within working with wood, working with metal, and fundamentals of color composition. We also had courses on photography, and these sort of became the foundations of our design understanding. And also there were courses that challenged our preconceived notions, right? There were interdisciplinary courses that we had that we discussed all sorts of issues, right from what does diversity mean, what does it mean to be an Indian, and all sorts of topics, right? And that really those kind of conversations enriched the actual curriculum that we were going through also. Again, design also has multiple fields, right? There is graphic design, exhibition design, product design, textile design, and myriad other fields. I majored in exhibition design, but my segue into user experience design was very easy because NID was a place that made sure that the core fundamentals and the foundations of design was strong, and that is sort of common across any design field. Another point that I want to talk about is creativity versus skill, right? And this is one topic that I try to bring up in any design discussion that I have, especially with non-designers, because more often than not, these two things are seen as one as the same, right? There is a misconception that if you have to be considered as a creative person, you need to have skills, right? In terms of sketching or drawing or whatever it is, but that's not the case. You can be a creative person if you have a unique perspective on anything, right? And you have a way of looking at things differently. As long as you have that, you are already a creative person. And skills is something that you pick up along the way, right? You pick up different mediums, etc., and those sort of help you express your creativity and your imagination. So I feel creativity and skill, though they're not the same, they're essential to any designer, right? There is a balance between these two things that makes you a well-rounded designer. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about this is also I feel that a lot of people stop themselves from applying to design schools because they think that they are not skilled enough, or they're not really a great artist. But that is not a requirement at all. As long as you have a creative bone, design is very much a field that you can explore.
Devika, before you went ahead, I wanted to tell you your parents have really put in a comment on, and that is really beautiful, right? I just wanted to mention it to you. So I think, like you said, you are lucky enough to have parents who supported your journey, because it is not easy. I still speak to so many people our age, and they still say that, I wish my parents were a little supportive, right? Like, I maybe this would not be the journey or the path that I took. So while
Yeah.
you were lucky enough, I think so was I. I was allowed to do what I wanted. So kudos to my
Yeah.
parents for that. But then there's so many people who do not have that sort of encouragement or that sort of support, um,
Yeah.
from their parents. So I
Absolutely.
think I really wanted to point that out as well to our audience as such, that I think it really depends on, if you are choosing to be a parent, it's so much more a responsibility on your end to be supportive of your ward's passion, right? Like, it may be so many things. So we have so many people we talk to on a daily basis, people who have created amazing things just because they were supported at the right time by the right people, not just their parents, maybe their partners, maybe people in their office, elsewhere. So yes,
Yeah.
I just wanted to put that aside, and please go ahead, Devika, and kudos
No,
to your
thank you
parents.
so much. No, thank you so much. I am pretty grateful, very grateful to have parents, but have supportive parents. But one point that you mentioned is very important, right? That today, as we, because we have increased awareness about these different creative fields, when we become parents in the future, it is a responsibility that you carry with yourself to
Absolutely.
actually support and pay it forward, so to say. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, at this point, I want to just talk about a couple of projects that I did in while at NIT to really drive home the point that creativity and skill are not the same, and you don't really need to have all the skills to start your journey as a designer. Like, this was one of my very first projects in NID, and it was all about celebrating 600 years of Ahmedabad, in which each of us had to pick a location in the city of Ahmedabad and really go deep into the history of it, understand the culture of the people who inhabit that location and the whole process is called ethnographic research. But what it means essentially is that you spend time with these people, understand their challenges, understand their culture, understand what are the things that are important to them. So one of the places that I had picked is called Goodbye area. It is basically an area, the settlement of immigrants from Rajasthan. So there was a community from Rajasthan migrated to Gujarat and settled in this part of the city, and with them they got a lot of their culture and heritage with them, right? And as I was talking to them, I realized that they feel like an outsider in the city, even though it's been so many 50, 60 years that they have been in Ahmedabad. They're still looked at as outsiders, right? And that really hit me very deeply, because I wanted to tell their story, right? As a designer, I felt that it is my responsibility to tell the story, what it means to be this community, so that the perception of the locals towards them changes, right? And one of the things that I also realized, that these people were this community was very proud of their own culture, right? So the medium I chose was film, and I sort of recorded this short film, or a more like a documentary style, where I was talking about, where I was capturing perspectives of the locals of Ahmedabad, how they perceive this particular community, and also sort of showed the real life and the real story of what it means to be a migrant or an immigrant in a different city through the lens of these beautiful children and women over here. So that documentary was uh, uh, a part of my deliverable, so to say, but it was something that I had created. And another thing that came to light while I was having those conversations is that because they are so neglected as a community, the government themselves is not really doing much to help them come up in life, right? In fact, there was this particular road, if you can see my cursor, this road was built overnight, essentially by demolishing a part of their settlement, right? And that rendered a lot of them homeless and displaced, and they were evicted to faraway places within the city, disconnected from community. So that is something that I wanted to highlight and spread awareness of, and also do it in a way that is thought provoking and challenges the attitude of locals towards this community, so that people can come together and address this issue. For that, what the thought that I had was that on the road, this was the actual road where the houses were demolished and built, right? So I wanted to create something right on that road, so that people who travel, the locals who travel, take that road to office every day, understand the story behind it, right? And the idea was to have these life size elevations of the settlement that look like these houses of the people, and every few yards this sort of elevation sort of gets torn away, and then what is revealed behind it is a mirror, right? So as you are going, let's say in an auto rickshaw in the road, you see these houses, and slowly by the end of it you see yourself in the place where those houses used to be, right? So that was my way of communicating the story in a very abstract manner, and really making, instilling that thought that why, what is this about? I want to know more, and challenge that attitude of the local towards this community. So the point of me bringing up this project is that this was one of my first projects at NID, and I wasn't super skilled as an artist, right? All I knew that I wanted to tell a story, right? So I just took a camera and shot a bunch of videos and made it into a film. Today, it is so easy now with social media and TikTok. It is so easy to capture video, right? And why not use that medium to actually tell meaningful stories, right? You don't have to be skilled to be creative, is what I was coming at. Another, a more light-hearted example is another interactive installation that me and a couple of friends created at NIT. This was not part of the curriculum, but this was purely out of, we just had an idea, and three of us were very excited about it, and we just went ahead and, executed it. The whole idea was to do something special for New Year's, and the theme was, we wanted to invoke joy and delight within the student community at NID. So we spent an entire night just blowing balloons and filling up this glass room with a bunch of yellow balloons, right? And this room was right in the center of the main campus, and we chose that so that on the New Year's day, when people cross that location, they get intrigued, and they, want to explore and see what's happening, because it looks like a very colorful, cheerful room. And another layer that we added on top of it was that each balloon had a note attached to it, right? And that note was basically an anonymous New Year's resolution that we had collected from various people in campus, right? And so the idea was, when people walk into this room, not only is it a cheerful, nice start to the new year, but we encourage people to read these New Year's resolutions that were anonymously written, and we encourage them to whichever, to basically choose a particular resolution that they resonated with or related with, and take away that balloon with them as a, as a souvenir. So as much as it was about spreading cheer, it was also about spreading that feeling that you are not alone in this journey, right? There is also someone else who's going through that same journey, because a lot of these resolutions were funny, they were serious, they were also very heartfelt. So that became a nice way of bringing community together, even though it was done in an anonymous way, right? Even this, right, we didn't really need a lot of skills in terms of creating something. It was just a very simple idea that we just went ahead and executed, and it created an experience, so to say. So that is also a big part of design, right? So that was the second thing that I wanted to highlight. And the third project was at the very end of my design education. It was my degree project where I got to apply all the knowledge that I had learned and acquired, and the skills that I had gained throughout the years, right? And this was all about designing interiors for a service apartment on the themes that would reflect art and crafts of Andhra Pradesh, right? And that was the theme of the interiors. Basically, that was the brief that was given to me. And I am not a native of Andhra Pradesh, so it all started with research, right? I went through many different locations in Andhra Pradesh. I interacted with a lot of craftsmen who are indigenous to that region, and really understood culturally what are the symbols that are important, what are the crafts that are specific to that region, and got to interact with so many people to really immerse myself in that culture, and taking all of that knowledge and then distilling it and abstracting it into actually creating a space that sort of talks about Andhra Pradesh, right? So if you see here, a lot of the furniture was inspired by the temple architecture that you see in Andhra Pradesh, and gold was something that is really considered to be auspicious. So I had introduced gold elements in this space. Um, One of the rooms was completely done up on the theme of kalamkari. Kalamkari is basically a block printing craft that was indigenous to a region in Andhra Pradesh. And I also wanted to highlight the tools that the craftsmen use, right? So they have these really beautiful, intricately carved wooden blocks that they used for printing. So I sort of brought them to the forefront and added them as elements in the space. I also worked with Ikkat craftsmen. Ikkat is another type of weaving. It's a kind of weaving, and though it is practiced in other parts of the country, there are regions in Andhra Pradesh who have these craft clusters of Ikkat, and then so understanding that that textile design form and taking motifs from there to that inspired the furniture. I also worked with certain shadow puppetry artists. So all in all, what had happened with this project is that I was able to understand these different aspects of a culture that was not native to me, and I was able to abstract all of that knowledge and present it in a way that reflects or communicates what I really wanted to. And it took a certain level of skill to actually coordinate with all of these different people to actually get things made also. So NID really puts you through all of these different experiences and prepares you really to be able to become a successful designer in the real world. So that's what I wanted to speak about, right? That it is possible for you to not have all the skills right up front when you want to start a design education. By the end of it, you like believe me, you will have the skills to support your creativity and become a well-rounded designer. Next, coming to talk about what it means to be a user experience designer in the industry, right? That was all about my design education and the projects that I worked on while in college. Coming to talk about the real world, right? What is it to be a user experience designer? I feel that creativity and skill is like a part of your design journey throughout your life as long as you're a designer. But as user experience, especially in the tech industry, I feel we also carry a sense of responsibility with us, because a UX designer is essentially the one who is presenting the end user in the company, right? In any company, I feel that there will always be someone at the table who brings the business perspective. There will always be someone who will represent technology. But a UX designer is someone who is crucial because they bring the end user's perspective to the table. Because at the end of the day, what does the company do, right? You're creating solutions you're creating different products for someone to use, right? And as long as you don't understand that person's behavior, that person's problems, and the nuances, you're not going to be able to come up with valuable solutions. And that is where the role of a user experience designer becomes very critical in not just meeting the needs of the user, but also defining the success of what you build, right? At this point, I want to talk about two, again, misconceptions around UX design. One being, there are plenty misconceptions, but two of them that I want to highlight today. One being that UX design is only means designing of apps or websites or digital interfaces, right? While that is true to a certain extent, it's not just that. And second, UX design is all about making an app or a website look pretty or aesthetic, right? So, to sort of understand why these misconceptions are wrong, I would like to talk about a couple of examples. On the left hand side, you see a furniture store, right? While in the first go it looks organized, but it is cluttered. There is no real design element that has gone into creating a user experience. There is no clear path for me to navigate between different sections over here. And while I can buy certain furniture from here, it's not really helping me make a decision in an effective way, right? Whereas on the right hand side, this is a showroom which is selling essentially the same things. It is there is a sofa, there are cabinets, there are tables, there are chairs, but it is designed in a way that it is shown in context of its use, right? So what it does is that people who walk in, who want to buy furniture, it immediately creates that connect, right? Because they can visualize themselves in their space, and they can visualize how they will feel when they walk into their own house, if their house looked like that, right? So that is what user experience is all about. It is about creating that connect, it is about telling that relatable story, right? And at the end of the day, it also makes the decision making easier, right? At the end of the day, the showroom on the right will have more sales than on the left, because the experience is so much more memorable and so much more meaningful. So yeah, UX is not just about digital interfaces. It can be applied in all sorts of physical spaces as well, and the principles of course remain the same, whether it is a physical or a digital space. Another thing people think is that UX is all about making things look pretty, but I would say UX, visual communication, is a major part of UX. It's not the only part, but yes, conveying an emotion or conveying a value through the visual side of things is a very big element in user experience design, right? If you see the example on the left, it is a website homepage of a certain brand, um, of cycles, and it looks like any other, those 100 other cycle brands out there. It doesn't really communicate the brand values of that particular company, whatever that company might be, right? Whereas on the right hand side, this is a homepage of another brand that is also selling bikes, but at the first go, it is a sophisticated brand, it is a modern brand. And if that sort of continues throughout my experience of scrolling through the website, understanding what their brand is about, then this experience is much more memorable to me. So tomorrow, when I think of bikes, I'll think of this brand rather than this on the left, because this is another, again, a very generic sort of brand. And that brand might be doing great things. They might be actually creating very cutting edge cycles, but because the website doesn't communicate that through the visual layer, I might not even know that, right? So the brand values being communicated through UX design is also a big part of it. It's not just about making it look pretty and aesthetic, right? So these are the two things that I thought, I would bring, and I hope I have conveyed why those are not true in terms of what people think of UX design. Coming towards talking about two more important areas. One is diversity in design teams, right? Like I talked about my experience at NID during my design education. It was all about that culture of collaboration and brainstorming together and coming up with ideas together, right? Even in the professional setting, it is as important to have people from all sorts of backgrounds, right? So it's not just diversity in terms of gender, it is also in terms of where you're coming from, your cultural background, your skill set, your approach towards design itself, right? That needs to be complementary. If there is a good designer in the team, the aim is not just to clone that designer, right? You want to have people with complementary approaches towards design. And I am in a place in my career where I actually get to influence these decisions, right? So when last year, when it came to hiring and expanding the team, I was very clear that I wanted a diverse design team, starting with an equal split between men and women. And today we are a group of 10 designers for PayU, and this is a I'm personally very proud of building this team because we have a 50-50 split between men and women. And beyond that, individually also, they come from very different, thought processes, which makes work every day so much more interesting and insightful. And we learn so much from each other every day just by virtue of being diverse. Right. Finally, touching upon the point of what does it mean to be a woman in design, right? um, there are a lot of challenges that women face in the workplace, that needs its own day in the sun. It needs a proper discussion and awareness about it. But what I want to touch upon is the positive side of things, right? And my take towards this topic is a slightly different. I feel that it's not about you being a man or a woman, right? There are certain qualities that you need to possess as a designer to become successful. And these qualities, conventionally, some qualities are viewed or perceived as feminine, some are perceived as masculine, right? But all of us possess them. It might be in varying degrees, but certain qualities that are feminine qualities, so to say, like humility, empathy, and being ethical, are very core to being a successful designer. You need to be humble enough to accept that your perspective is not the be all and end all of it, right? You need to be accepting of other people's perspective, because when you're looking at a problem and trying to come up with a solution, you might have a train of thought or you might have a way of looking at it, but a person that you work with comes along and then they see the problem in a completely different light, and that you need to be humble enough to accept that perspective and understand where they are coming from, so that at the end the solution that you build is that much more enriched, right? Another thing is empathy. The difference between your perspective and understanding another person's perspective, that gap, I feel, is empathy. And since as a designer you are most often than not designing or creating solutions for somebody else, right? You need to be able to understand that person's behavior, person's mental model, the problems and the nuances of it, so that you as a designer can come up with a solution that really is relatable to that end user, right? And finally, being ethical. And I think in today's world of technological advancement, as designers, your desire to come up with solutions should come from a place of, really wanting to create a positive change in someone else's lives, because you have that power to do so, right? So these, I think, are the few traditionally feminine qualities I feel that are core to being a successful designer, and not to say that, if you're a man you don't possess these qualities. Like I said, all of us have it. And then you pair these qualities with traditionally or conventionally masculine qualities like assertiveness, persuasion, being opinionated, right? Then that sort of makes you a well-rounded designer. If you need to be humble, but you also need to be stand up for yourself and express what is right? If you think something is wrong, you need to be able to express that. You need to be empathetic, but you also need to have your own opinion, right? So I think it's just about, it is not about being a man or a woman. It is about possessing these different qualities. And what I want to leave here is with a question, right? Do these values really need to be stereotyped? I don't think so. I would like to hear your thoughts as well. And with that, I conclude this talk. Thank you so much for giving me your time and listening to what I have to say. And I hope there is even a little bit of learning, sorry, that you take away from this little conversation of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Devika. I think this was a fun conversation. Thank you so much for putting across a lot of points, right? Even your journey throughout your design, as well as your life, that helped you sort of put that in perspective that you wanted to get into design. So I think it really helps. I hope whoever is following us is able to take back a little more than what they knew before this conversation. And I think, Devika, while we are already here on this conversation, I just wanted to ask you, how, as in, I know, while you say this should not be that bias, women in design or anything else, right? Did you feel that because you were a woman in at the workplace, you did not get a certain sort of you were not able to experience a certain thing a certain way because of being a woman in design or being a woman in workplace? Did that happen not just at your current organization, even before or throughout your design school and anything like that, right? Did that ever happen, come into play anytime?
Yeah. I think looking back, what really mattered was that as a young professional, especially when I started my design career, what I didn't have was a powerful woman leader in design, right? Who I could look up to or who could guide me. And that really makes a difference, because even though I had great mentors who were not women who guided me throughout my journey, if there was a woman mentor, that would have shifted my mindset a lot before, right? Today I understand what it means to be in that position and be able to influence young professionals, right? But I didn't have that in my early part of the career. And that actually reminds me of a story, that, an incident that happened at PayU, right? I think I was around a year and a half inside in PayU, and my mentor, who also happened to be my boss in PayU, Amber, he said that, it is time for you to take the next step. It is time for you to become a manager. I want you to handle the enterprise design. There will be two people reporting to you, and these are the things that you'll be responsible for. What do you think, right? And at that point, as much as I was excited about that opportunity, I was also very scared, because I had not seen a woman in that position actually take care of those responsibilities, that told me, okay, if she can do it, I can do it too, right? But and the another concern that I had was, up until that point I would be responsible for my own growth in my career, right? But when I become a manager, when I take that next step, I'll also be responsible for other people's growths and their career trajectory. And something that Amber said really stayed with me is that that thought or that approach towards this particular topic is exactly why you will become a good manager, because you have that awareness of that responsibility, right? So I think that really stayed with me. But now, being a woman in a position where I can influence decisions, again I sort of carry forward that responsibility. But I'm sure if I had a strong woman mentor at that point, I wouldn't have even hesitated to take up that opportunity. I think that is something that in my experience I've faced. But yeah.
I think this speaks a lot, right, about the how less number of women are in positions of leadership in, maybe not just in India, maybe elsewhere also, because either they shy away from asking for more responsibilities or asking for what they deserve, or just that they don't get the opportunity. I think
Yeah.
there's no better way to end this conversation other than that. Again, thank you so much, Devika. This was a fun conversation. Like I said before, I hope somebody who's been following us is able to relate to Devika's story and take up their decisions, right? This was a passion turned into a profession, nothing like that. So we have another set of people who are coming next end of this week on the 17th, also talking about something related to passion and their professions. So you can catch us on Instagram. We are going live at 7 p.m. on the 17th. So please catch us there. Otherwise, again, thank you so much, Devika. This was fun. And thank you so much to the audience as well. We have audience listening to us on YouTube as well as LinkedIn, interacting with us, people tagging each other. Says a lot, right, about the conversation that we are having here. So thank you, Devika. Thank you once again. And any last words before we close, and we can then close.
No, I would just like to express my gratitude. Thank you for giving me this platform to talk about something that is very close to my heart. And I would like to continue this conversation. Anyone who's listening in, I would encourage you to connect with me via whatever channel you're comfortable with, and we can take the conversation ahead. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Devika. Thank you to our audience. Like we said, you can always catch us on our next session. We are the whole of the month, we are focusing on women leaders, women entrepreneurs, people that did a little more than the rest and did great at either are influencing people or like Devika here, she wants to be able to support more leaders coming her way, right? More people in design coming her way, because probably if she had seen somebody in that position, maybe she would have not felt scared when her manager asked her to take on a manager role. So a few things that we always want sorted out in our lives. But yes, thank you so much again, Devika. This was fun, and take care, everybody.
Take care. Thank you, guys.